Hello and welcome to the Guru Is You podcast. I'm your host, Laura Wall. This podcast is all about people who found unconventional methods to heal themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Their stories contain a little bit of mystery, maybe some magic, and even miracles. And they're here to inspire you to remember you are more than your body. You are more than your mind. You are the guru, and the guru is you. Today's guest is not just one of my longtime besties, but she is also a best-selling author on Amazon, and she's a singer-songwriter who just released 2 new songs on Spotify. Let's welcome Lita Khatibi Vallis. So I understand that you have explored a healing modality that is relatively unfamiliar to a lot of people. And I'd love to hear your story about that.
Sure. Well, the modality that I have explored is a nature medicine. It comes from a toad, as in the amphibian of the toad. And, living here in Austin, Texas, there is a lot of alternative medicine um, being explored. And so I heard about the toad medicine um, just through, some friends and social circles. And it was pretty far out there for me to explore personally. It took me a couple years of just kind of hearing about it. I did have a lot of curiosity because I'm just naturally a very curious person. So when I first heard about it, I was like, a toad? Tell me more about that. And I read up on read up on it a bit. Um, I talked to some friends who had had experiences with it, and then I just let it sit, for a couple years. Um, I didn't have a particular healing issue, as in I don't have, migraine headaches, or I don't have, um, you know, a inflammatory condition, or like anything like that. Like a lot of people come to find their healing path because of a chronic illness, right? Well, I didn't have that situation. So when I found the toad medicine, um, it wasn't a oh, I need that right away experience. So yeah, I just gave it some time, and I was curious about it, and I tucked it away. And um, about 2 years, in about 2 years, it took before I felt a calling to experience it for myself. And I have experimented with different plant medicines as well, and it was a similar experience. And this is seems to be how these medicines work, where they almost call to you when you're ready for them, or you have an intuitive knowing that okay, it's time for me to explore that. And for me, I've always used the formula that if I hear about something 3 times, that then I know it's something I need to pursue for myself. So with the toad medicine, I'd heard about it, I was curious about it, I read up on it, and then I had 2 other people just in conversation, share about their experience with it in passing. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to explore this. So yeah, so for me, it wasn't a quick process, and it wasn't a needed process. It was a curiosity, and when the timing felt right, I'd heard about it 3 different times from 3 different people in 3 different ways, um, and I just had this intuitive knowing that okay, it's time for me to explore this for myself. And I had heard from all 3 people that it was very healing, very cathartic, very powerful. So I knew that I needed to, buckle up, you know, to be prepared. It's not like, oh, just, something you just do in passing. It's something you are called to do when you're really ready for a healing experience like that. So that's basically what happened for me. I felt that urging, that call, and I signed up without knowing exactly what I would be getting out of the experience, but that I was ready and open to receive whatever the medicine had to teach me.
You were very brave, I have to admit, because that sounds like something that it's kind of like playing Monopoly with your older brother or your older sister. Like you don't know the rules, you're just being led along, but you were very trusting. And again, with plant medicines, I know they take you on a journey if you are open and willing. So you certainly were that. Can you tell us a little bit about the details of the actual experience, like what you went through, as well as maybe any of the outcomes that you did experience? Because you said it was healing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Um, so yeah, and I had a little bit of an idea just from the three people that had told me about their experience that there would be, there could be, bodily fluids, all the things, the snot and the maybe some people have a purging experience, some people, um, you know, tears and emotions and crying and some screaming. There's a wide range of experience. So I was prepared to have a cathartic emotional experience of some sort. Um, and so yeah, when I prepared for it, I did some cleansing, eat a clean diet leading up to the day of your experience. Um, I had, the practitioners give you a list of just guidelines. It's, recommended not to be eating meat or dairy, um, leading up to the experience, just to have a uh, clean vessel, basically. So I took all those precautions, and yeah, it was a ceremonial space. It was in somebody's home, and there were two practitioners. So one was sort of leading the experience, and one was more holding the space. Handing me Kleenex, handing me a bucket in case anything needed to come out. um, and also there was music involved in the process, so there were sound bowls, there were drums, so it was like a sound bath healing experience was going on in the background while I was having my journey. And so yeah, so I came in and I set my intention, just to be open and receive whatever message or lesson or healing was there for me. And I shared that with the practitioners, and then we kind of settled in, and they were both there in the room with me. Um, and the medicine itself is delivered. It actually, it comes from the toad. I don't know a lot about the logistics. I know that it is ethically sourced. Um, so I don't know. You'd have to study that somewhere else of exactly how that sourcing happens. I do have some references I can offer in the show notes for people that are curious, and if anybody's feeling a call to this sort of thing, I do have some references that I can share. But I know that it is ethically sourced from the toad, in Mexico is where these naturally medicinal toads are found, and they're like, the toads are marked so that they don't take out too much medicine from the same toad, because it is a venom that they use to protect themselves in the wild. So you don't want to take too much of it from the same toad, because then they might not have what they need. So they only take enough that the toad is still safe and protected. Um, and so some of the places where they're you know excavating, I guess, the medicine, they actually mark the toads to make sure that they don't grab the same one, but out from the wild.
I'm having a little image of like volunteer toads and then signing a little form, and then they're being promised that they'll only have 50% of their venom removed. And Almost like going to a blood bank and donating your plasma or something. I guess there's a little teeny tiny toad clinic you can hop into to donate
Yeah,
your venom. Okay.
yeah. Well, some schools of thought would say that they have made some sort of agreement, on the spiritual plane, that they've come to Earth with this profound medicine, and who knows? Maybe they have a little agreement with nature, with Mother Nature around this. I don't know. Um, so then when it comes to me as the receiver of that medicine, it's actually in sort of like a pipe, and you light it and you inhale. So kind of like a kind of like a Toad Bong, I guess, where
Hold on, a toad bong. Okay.
don't that is my own terminology. So don't Google that. I don't know that that will show up as a real thing. But it was like a bong, and you light one side of it and just inhale
So it's creating a gas from the venom that you're able to
smoke.
ingest internally,
Yeah,
inhaling.
you
Okay,
ingest the smoke. Hmm.
gotcha.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it looked like a little resin in the pipe, and then when it lit up, it made smoke that I would inhale. And the guide is right there, breathing with you and counting, so that it was very calming and soothing, especially if you have any experience with tobaccos or other plants that are smokable. Um, let's leave it at that. um, yeah, so that was a fairly easy part of the experience. And so then I inhaled the smoke, and pretty instantly you feel I felt sort of a warmth, like a blood flow increase. Like, ooh, it felt pleasant on some level. Um, and then the practitioners kind of stepped back and started with the sound bowls and kind of humming and chanting, you know, just a soothing background music. And then I closed my eyes and just leaned back on the pillows that they had provided for me. And I did feel a little bit of like, ooh, uneasiness, I would guess you would say, which I was prepared for, which made it less uneasy. Um, and the bucket was right there. I remember kind of like spitting into it a little bit, just kind of just in case there was anything that needed to get out. I was like, kind of preparing my body. Okay, it's there if you need it. Um, and then, then that's when the journey began. So then my mind took me to the morning of it was April 7th, 1989, and on that morning, my 21-year-old sister was killed in a car accident, and I was 17 when that happened. And in my mind, I just went right back to that place where I remembered I was there basically reliving it. And a police officer came to our front door. I heard the knocking, and my dad answered the door, and he asked, do you have a daughter named Lisa? And he said yes. And I heard the officer say through my bedroom door, I could hear him saying, I'm sorry to inform you, but she's been killed in a car accident. And then that the whole morning kind of it seemed to last. I could go into every detail of that, but basically in the journey, I was just right there in the feel of those emotions. And um, the powerful part about this experience was that in 1989, when this actually happened, I internalized all the emotions. Like, I didn't cry. I was in shock. And what I did with my 17-year-old wise self, right, was I started caretaking my parents. I actually went out. I remember going to the hallway and started talking to the police officer like I was the parent, because my parents had fallen to the ground in huddled masses crying. Right? They were unable to communicate. And so my 17-year-old brain went into adult caretaking mode, and I was talking to the police officer and thanking him for coming, and getting the information of where we could go collect her things and all this. And my parents were blobs of tears and sorrow that couldn't function. Um, so I didn't cry. And that was, it's been a good long time, to the point where my mom, about 6 months after this happened, my mom actually put me in therapy with a psychologist to get me to cry. She's like, you need to cry. It's not healthy. You need to cry. And so I went to counseling, and was like, I remember I would try and sit and cry. I would like sit and like try and make myself cry. But the brain is a fabulously complex thing, and that was the coping mechanism that I had used. And so it was a long time before I cried. I did have some good cries, but on the morning of this medicine experience, it was like I went back to that place and I was ready to cry. I was so ready. I sat up, and then all I remember is just bawling, like crying and like moaning and rocking, and just I cried like I've never cried before. Like an ugly cry, and just snot everywhere and blah. And I'd say a good 20 minutes. I just bawled my eyes out. From it felt like my soul was retching with sadness. Ah, and I just let it out. Finally, I just let out all those tears and all that sadness and all of that emotion just was right there, and I was ready for it. And so after, and the practitioners were right there, just totally holding the sacred space for me to just cry like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And yeah, they just let me go. And when I was full, or empty, really, yeah, when I was empty, I just sat back.
So I'm kind of fascinated with the very beginning part of your story where you said that you were kind of, experiencing kind of the bodily sensations of the medicine, inhaling it, feeling warm. You were kind of preparing yourself for any kind of possible purge. And then it took you almost like an express train right to a memory. So there wasn't much meandering. There wasn't a lot of visualization or anything. It took you right to the point of a place that sounds like has been waiting to be released.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was, and it wasn't like, for me, it wasn't like a psychedelic experience with colors and sounds or anything like that. It was just, I was back there in the hallway feeling, yeah, I just went back to that moment where I remember like thinking, like, I need to handle things. Like, I remember having this thought, like, I've got to handle this because my parents can't. And I just shut down my own emotions. So I was just right back there again. But this time around, I had full freedom to completely express all of those emotions very, very powerfully. But yeah, there was no meandering. It was, I just, all of a sudden, I was just back in the hallway and back there, and basically, it's like I relived the experience in a way that gave me the freedom to release in the moment of the experience happening.
Yeah,
Even
I'm
even though it's been 30 plus years since that moment actually happened, um, yeah, I was just right back there with the freedom to have the experience that I guess I needed to have and didn't have back then. Or I believe it. It all happens for a reason. I'm not like pining away for these 30 years where I don't feel like I've been crippled by this lack of expressed emotion. But what I will say is that since this experience, I do feel more alive than I felt before. I do feel more in touch with my full range of emotion than I did before.
Yeah, I see in that moment the contrast of the experience you were having, which was you being the parent or being the surrogate parent, and you taking over and being ultra calm and suppressing and managing. And then the contrast of you finally being able to express what may be an average, ordinary, I don't know what word we would want to use, but what you would expect a lot of people to experience when they had a loss is that they would cry at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see, now that you're able to see both of those pictures, is there any other lesson or learning that you gathered from that?
Hmm. Well, the learning, actually, yeah, because the learning I had that I've shared since then with people is the value of tears, the importance of expressing, negative and positive emotion. I always say that, cries and tears are just the opposite of laughter. That like we need to cry as often as we laugh. They're both significant aspects of human expression. And if we're suppressing tears and sadness or crying because it's, whatever BS our culture has taught us, that it's weak or wrong or not appropriate or whatever, yeah, we're just missing out on half of the spectrum of human experience.
Mm.
So that has been a mantra for me ever since this experience. Whenever I see anybody, like, like people will like stop crying, like something sad will come up and people will like breathe or, grab a Kleenex and try and stop
Or
themselves
apologize.
or
I'm
apologize.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes. And I have a passion now to go to those people and be like, no, please, you know, please let it out. Let it out. Trust me. It feels so good. It feels so good. And
Hmm.
I'm also able to hold space for people more powerfully now. Like some people maybe aren't as comfortable being with people when they're experiencing heavier emotions. And I will say that that has been a gift of this experience to me is not only am I able to hold space, I'm excited when I see those tears building up. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so good for them. You know, I get excited about tears and sadness and crying because I know what's on the other side of it.
I have to say I agree with you there. I'm the same in the work that I do. When I see people finally cry, I see like what you're saying, like it's a release, like something is finally being let go, almost like a waterfall or taking a shower, that something's being washed away or finally able to move on.
Yes, so true, so true. And in addition to that, like moving on, like my relationship to my sister that passed away, I actually feel more connected to her since this experience happened. And I don't know how all that works, or um, I I don't know how to explain that other than I feel it's almost like her death makes more sense to me. I have a knowing that it was her choice to move on, that it was part of some other bigger plan that maybe I don't understand. And I talk to her just like as you would just pray. Like sometimes I just thank her for the gift of her life and the role that she's had in my life, because obviously everything changed after the day that she died. My life was no longer the same and never has been. And I'm grateful for that now. I can be grateful. It's going to make me
So the same,
cry.
I know, me too.
And I am not going to stop myself because that's the whole point, right?
Everybody cry now. Everybody together.
Whew. Yes,
Oh,
yes, yes, yes.
yeah, I see a really beautiful exchange, almost like something was able to move through you and move out and create a greater space and an opening for greater knowing and deeper connection with your family through this healing.
Hmm. Yeah,
Beautiful.
definitely. Yeah. I haven't shared this particular experience with my family because my family is like way more conservative than I am, and religiously, I don't know that this would land with them in the powerful way that I would want it to. So I haven't figured out how to share it with them. I believe I just shared it in the context of, I finally had a really good cry.
I bet your mom was delighted.
Yes, and that's yeah, she was. She was like, "Oh, thank God, honey.
Yeah.
We were just so worried about you. You just weren't crying. I'm so glad." She was just delighted that I finally had that release.
Well, and she had that deeper knowing of the need for release, that that was going to be part of healing. Maybe she didn't know which path you would take to get to that.
Yeah, boy, yeah. Who would have guessed this path? I wouldn't have guessed it. Certainly.
I'm pretty sure my mom's never recommended toad medicine to me. So
That is not on the list of prescriptions. No. But maybe I'll show her this podcast.
you never know.
You never know.
So, in the bigger scheme of things, how would you define the concept of healing?
Hmm.
What does that mean to you when I say someone's been healed, or you say, I've had a healing, or I'm healed of something?
Hmm. Yeah, my definition is restored to our natural state of wholeness. Restored. Healing is restoration. I believe by nature we are whole and healthy and full and complete. That is our design. So the experiences and the traumas and just the journey that we go on, you know, the healing is to restore and return to that natural state of health and wholeness. And yeah,
That's a good place. That's a good place to stay.
it really is.
Is there anything else that you would like to say to the listeners or to the viewers? There might be someone out there that's considering this journey. Maybe they've heard about it once or heard about it twice, or maybe there's just something that they're wrestling with in body, mind, or spirit. They can't seem to resolve. The name of the podcast is "The Guru Is You," so we're listening for that inner voice. What would you encourage them to say to themselves, Lita?
Mm, yes, I would encourage. Well, I would encourage anybody to commit to their their healing journey, um, whatever path that takes, whether it be toad medicine or plant medicines or taking more walks and exercising, anything, whatever you are called to do to restore yourself, commit, because that will be the center point of so many other valuable things in your journey and your purpose and your fulfillment, right? Your own healing is so central to that. Um, with this particular world of medicines, if this one is resonating, I would encourage anybody to definitely explore and ask questions. And you can reach out to me. I'll put my social media here in the show notes. I'm willing to share more details, and um, and that it's really not scary. I think that's a preconceived notion when people hear about some of these things. I guess the preconceived notions that I would like to dispel is that it's um, yeah, like it wasn't scary. The idea of it seemed so strange and foreign, but the reality of it was there were sound bowls and drums and chanting and a very you know cathartic, relaxing experience. And even afterwards, I felt great. I just felt so, just relieved and relaxed. So there was nothing scary about my experience. And then the other myth is, that's just so weird, which which I totally understand because it took me 2 years to get over that one for myself. you know. And so, if you're having that conversation with yourself, I just invite you to look, go back to the source. Like, well, what's weirder? I mean, alcohol is weirder to me as a coping device because you have to like I don't know what they do to it, but it's these medicines literally just grow. Like how weird is that? Like they're just out there, and these tribes, these indigenous people have been experimenting and discovering them, for centuries. It's weird to us because we don't have that history, that lineage of working with these. But I mean, it's it's really more natural than a lot of the prescription drugs that people use to deal with their issues that are made in labs with chemicals and strange combinations and compounds of things that may or may not belong together. Right? This is
that do not occur in nature.
correct. I mean, the parts I mean, everything occurs in nature ultimately, or we wouldn't have it. But the combination of the things it takes to get a prescription drug doesn't naturally occur, where these are just purely sourced from nature. So, yeah, that would be my encouragement to work your way through those myths, and then and the myth that it is like like a druggie, like you're going to get addicted to some sort of.
So you're not addicted to toad medicine? Is that?
I haven't done it since, and I haven't thought about doing it since. If it comes on my radar, if I feel that knowing or sense of it, I would do it again, but I have no plans to do it again or biological drive to do it again at this point.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing your healing journey with toad medicine with us.
My pleasure.
If you have come this far, I want to thank you so much for the gift of your attention. To hear more amazing healing stories, please subscribe. This podcast has been brought to you by the Hearts of Healing Center. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing more light, love, healing, and hope by freely offering holistic healing services to our local and global community. To learn more about us and to see more details from today's episode, be sure to check out the show notes. And don't forget, you are more than your body. You are more than your mind. You are the guru, and the guru is you.